Hello there, Math 210. This is Professor Talbert, and this is the long-awaited, or at least long-promised, video overview for Test 1, which is coming up on Monday. So Test 1, Test 2, and all the other tests, before you take them, you need to kind of make sure you understand the purpose of testing in this class. It's a writing-oriented class, so why are we having tests? Well, the purpose of the test here is overall just to demonstrate what you know about the material on several different levels. The homework and proof portfolio assess your knowledge of the material on one very important level, which is the sort of the synthesis level to put all this stuff together and write a good proof. But there's all these other ways of understanding the material, and you'll see each of these on your test. And so remember that what the test is for you to show me what you know, and that becomes important. For example, you don't want to leave things blank on a test like this. If you get stuck on a problem, you want you to simply brain dump everything you possibly know or think you know about the problem that's in front of you, and don't just leave things blank. Show me what you do know about the problem that you're trying to solve. And you might find yourself only brain dumping if you get stuck on a problem. Just tell me what you know and move on, because I am gauging not correct answers or anything like that. I am gauging what you know as evidenced by what you put down on your test. And remember, there is lots and lots of partial credit being given on this test. So you put stuff down that's correct and demonstrate what you know. You may not make a perfect score or whatever, but you're going to be fine, at least from the sense of show me what you know. Okay, so demonstrate what you know on the test. Logistically, what should you bring into the test? Well, first of all, one thing I'm going to allow you to use, and I think I've hit this before in class, is you may take a 3x5 inch index card. If you don't have one of those, I have some in my office. They're really cheap though. And you may put anything you want to on that index card on either side. So that's about 30 square inches of space for you to put notes and theorem statements and worked out examples or truth tables or poetry or Bible verses or pictures of your dog or just whatever it is that's going to make you feel more comfortable in the test. This is not a test about memorization. I do not want it to be a test about memorization. Some things you have memorized just because you've used them so much, like for example how to form a contrapositive. Probably you don't have that so much memorized as you just have worked with it so much it's part of the way your brain works. But things like some of the more esoteric parts of Theorem 2.8, for example, that would be stuff to think about making space for it on your card. So just kind of as you're preparing for the test, think about the facts, that we often bring into discussions in the class, and if those facts aren't just totally right there at your fingertips, to stick them on the card. They don't have to be right there at your fingertips in your brain. You may have them on that index card. Obviously you need something to write with when you come, and also you might want to bring a calculator, because in some of the we've hit number crunching in the pre-proof analysis, finding counterexamples and so forth. So bring a calculator, something that will work for the kinds of things we've been doing in the class. I'm setting up the test so that there should be plenty of room on the test form itself to get your work done. But if you want to bring some extra paper just to do scratch work, that's totally okay. Just make sure it's blank and not attached to the inside of your notebook where you take your notes. And that's what to bring. Now, what the test is going to cover, as stated on the calendar, is Chapter 1, just the very, very basic foundations of what's a statement and so on. Chapter 2, which is a lot about truth tables, statements, logical equivalences, and so forth. And then these two sections from Chapter 3 that we've touched on in the last few days here. We are not covering proof by contradiction, which is Section 3.3 on this test. That will be sort of the natural starting point for the next test. If you are looking for a detailed list of things that you need to be able to do, like a topic list, you have actually been getting those sequentially throughout the semester in the form of the mind maps on the slides that are labeled eventual goals for today. Every time we do a presentation, I start off with one of these slides, and here's one of them from section 2.2, I believe it is, where we're learning about logically equivalent statements. So if you go to each one of these little mind maps in your presentations and trace it all the way down to the tips of those branches, they're all phrased in terms of action verbs. So logical equivalent statements. You should be able to define what logical equivalence means, determine logical equivalence using truth tables, state De Morgan's laws, and so on and so forth. That's your topic list. Okay, we've been giving those out piecemeal throughout the semester. So what you need to do is go back and look through those notes and kind of tick off the ends of those trees one by one. And if you can do all of those, once you are able to do all of those action verbs with a good deal of fluency and it's not really a lot of work for you, then you are truly prepared for the test. Okay, so that's where you're going to get your topic list. There won't be a separate one. I try to give this out in terms of learning goals. And the test, again, is about showing me what you know relative to the learning goals that we have stated in these little mind maps. Okay, so that's that. Now, what's on the test? I'm going to give you some lists of kind of what I have in mind here, and they have point values attached. Just bear in mind that the point values you're about to see are not necessarily fixed in stone. They may vary slightly as we go, but this is kind of what I have in mind so far. Definitely, I'll be putting 10 multiple choice questions on the test, kind of to mimic our clicker questions. These are questions that are over concepts. Typically, they'll have five possible selections, and there'll be 2 points apiece. So that's 20 points, 20% of your test, 20 points out of 200 from these multiple choice questions. So again, if you're looking for comparable sorts of questions, look back to the clicker questions we've hit in the class, and that's kind of the gist of how I'm making these things up. Some of them may actually turn out to be clicker questions that we actually looked at in class. There's going to be so the multiple choice stuff happens at the beginning of the test. The end of the test will be sort of a bookended 10 points where you're going to be answering some questions that's asking you to reflect on your performance on the test, how things have been going for you in the class so far, and so forth. Some essay questions. One of the bigger portions of the test will be a roughly 20-point section where I'm not going to ask you to do complicated proofs like you would see on your portfolio. Obviously, those take time and space, and you have to screw things up and fix them and get drafts handed back to you and so on. But I do want you to be able to do some pre-proof analysis and basic work with like setting up a table or a verbal proof or finding a counterexample for some simple statements. You should be thinking along the lines of things that you might have seen in preview activities or progress checks. That's the sort of difficulty level we're looking at. I'm not sure how many there will be, but it'll be enough to, we'll talk about time management in a minute, but it'll be enough for you to have no problem getting them done if you have prepared yourself and you're ready for the test. There's going to be 20 points of what I might call calculations. If you look back through the list of goals that we've had, a lot of these are things that you have to do by hand, like work with integer congruence. Like give me 5 examples of integers that are congruent to 10 mod 12 or something like that. Or working out a logical equivalence, like show this one statement's logically equivalent to the other without using a truth table. Those are sort of almost like algebra-like calculations, and there'll be about 20 points of that. That's just testing your knowledge of basic mechanical and math content stuff that we've covered in the class. That leaves 20 points. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with the rest of those. Those would probably be divvied up, and maybe instead of 20 points of analysis and proof, it might be 25. I'm not really sure, but those are the 4 major categories I'm kind of looking at here, and I reserve the remaining 20 either to just sort of beef up one of those categories or maybe create something that's related to them or combines reflection and analysis somehow. So that's basically what's on the test. Now, how do you think about taking a test like this? One of the most important things for any time test is time management, and I deliberately make the test a multiple of the time length for a very good reason. We have a 100-point test and it's 50 minutes long, and so that gives you an average velocity of 2 points a minute, 2 points per minute. So for example, when you see a 10-point question, you should be thinking, I've got 5 minutes in which to do this. If you see a 2-point question like the multiple choice questions, that should translate to 1 minute to do this, just like we do clicker questions in class where you get a minute to think and then you vote. Okay, so that's important for making sure you don't get bogged down and sink a bunch of time into a problem or a solution that ends up really going nowhere. For example, if you're working on a 10-point question and you have to watch the clock. Okay, so if you're working on a 10-point question and you have spent 7 or 8 minutes on it already, it's time to start thinking, am I going to get this done or not? And if you really think that you don't have much chance to finish it correctly, what you should do is brain dump everything that you know about that particular problem and say, here's where I've gotten to, here's what I do know about this problem, and then just punt and move on to the next one. Okay, it's not good to throw good points after bad, in a sense. You don't want to sink 20 minutes into a 10-point problem that isn't going to get solved anyway. Just cut bait, tell me what you do know, and then move on to something, and maybe where you got stuck will come loose later on. You can go back and finish it up. But manage your time carefully, because you do have 50 minutes, and that's the time restriction is part of the assessment process. I think we could all probably make 100% on this test if we had 5 or 6 weeks in which to do it, or maybe 5 or 6 hours in which to do it. What I'm trying to gauge here is your recall and application skills. Can you pull out the knowledge from your brain and apply it to a new situation with fluency, with quickness, and without wasting a lot of effort? So manage your time carefully. If you get stuck, don't be afraid to tell me what you know and then move on. Where do you go from here? Now that you know kind of what the test is about, what's on it, how much time, how many points, and so on, how do you get ready for it? Well, I mean, I think a large part of that is you've either gotten ready for it up to this point or you haven't. I mean, if you've been keeping up with preview activities, putting good deliberate work into progress checks, doing extra exercises, even though they're not collected, you're going to find you're going to have no problem on this test. So to that end, I mean, you should work through the extra progress checks that we didn't get to in class, or exercises that we didn't do for homework. You should definitely work problems. The last thing you want to do is to sort of quote unquote look over your notes, because looking over something doesn't guarantee that you know anything about it. I mean, gosh, if that were the case, I could just sort of like watch a concert pianist and just look over their work, and I should be able to like play Mozart or something, and you know what, I can't. It doesn't matter how much I watch. So you want to be very careful that you are working things, doing things with your hands and with your brain, so that you can positively say, I'm meeting those learning goals that are on the mind maps, that are in the trees diagrams on the slides. And that's not me saying this because I want to know it. It's the work itself is telling me that I'm doing it. You should, however, continue to look over your graded work, and especially examine carefully any comments that I give you. I try to be pretty verbose about my comments, just because I want you to have something to work with. So look those over and make sure you can explain, explain how you might fix or what was missing from any work that you got points taken off from. As you're studying, make sure you work together at some point, because I think learning socially is a very important thing. But also take time to work separately, because you're not going to be working socially on the test, obviously, or you'd be in big trouble, right? You're going to be working separately. So work together, but also work separately, and find a balance that works for you. And take care of yourself. The night before the test on Sunday night, don't stay up till 3 in the morning, for goodness sakes. Just get a good night's sleep, eat a good breakfast, eat a good lunch before you come in, brush your teeth. I sound like I'm talking to my kids, but I mean, seriously, taking care of yourself and make your brain is part of your body, right? So if your body is lacking something, whether it's sleep or hydration or food or whatever, your brain is just not going to work right. So just make sure you don't blow yourself out of the water Sunday night trying to get this done. Nibble at it, start tonight, do a little bit, work on chapter 1 tonight, chapter 2 Friday and Saturday night, and then chapter 3 Sunday night. That might be a good plan. Take it slow and don't knock yourself out. And finally, just show up. Make sure that you're present. I mean, really present in the classroom, not only there physically, but there mentally as well. Okay, so if you have questions about this, that's what tomorrow, Friday's class is sort of all about. We'll spend some time doing some rehearsal of some of these tasks I've talked about, but also I'll reserve some time for you to ask any other questions that are remaining here. But hopefully that covers generally what the test is about, and if not, you can let me know. I want you to do well. I think you will if you prepare yourself, and I'll help you as much as I can, all right? See you tomorrow.